Why does hair turn gray or white when a person gets old?
A pigment called melanin is responsible for hair color, as well as for skin and eye color. The darker the hair of a person, the more melanin in that person's hair. As people age, the supply of melanin to their hair may stop. Pigment-containing cells live and ordinarily multiply in the hair root. While an aging person's hair still grows, the lack of melanin in it makes it gray or white.
What is hail?
A hailstone is a ball made of layers of ice. It starts out as an ice crystal in a cloud, just as a snowflake does. But a hailstone is moved about by drafts or winds in the cloud, rising into cold air and drifting down where the air is warmer, again and again. The process builds up layers of ice and melting snow on the hailstone. While the average size of a hailstone when it finally makes its way to Earth is 1/4 of an inch across. Hailstones can become large enough to cause real damage, denting cars and damaging crops. The biggest recorded hailstones weighed well over 2 pounds. Fortunately, hailstones don't fall too often and usually only during spring and summer thunderstorms.
Do all plants have roots?
The simplest types of plants don't have roots. Single-celled green algae, for instance, float on water surfaces, as do many types of seaweed, which are larger types of algae. Those seaweeds that do cling to the seabed do so through growths called steadfasts, which are not true roots. Seaweed absorbs water and minerals from the sea through all its parts. Similarly, simple plants like mosses form low-growing mats in damp places, soaking up the moisture they need directly from their environment. Instead of roots, they have thread-like growths called rhizoids that anchor them to rocks or trees. More complex forms of plants, though, like ferns, conifers, cone-bearing plants, and flowering plants, all have true roots and stems, an internal transportation system that can move water and minerals from their source to wherever they are needed. Land plants have two types of roots, tap roots and fibrous roots. A plant's root type is often determined by its water source. A tap root is a large, single root that grows straight down to reach water deep in the soil, with smaller roots branching off of it. Fibrous roots have no main root but spread out in a wide web to gather water located in the top layers of soil. In places like rainforests where there is abundant plant growth with little ground space for roots and plenty of moisture, some plants grow high up in trees. These epiphytes, or air plants, have fibrous, spongy, aerial roots that get moisture from the frequent rains and take minerals from the surface of the tree on which they grow. or from the plant debris that gathers around their roots. Many orchids are epiphytic plants.
How do you know which is which?
The problem is that you can't always know. Sometimes hurtful people can fool kids into thinking they are gentle and helpful. They may have pleasant faces and friendly voices, and they may say nice things. So it's important to follow personal safety rules with all strangers.
Why do we use money?
We use money as payment for goods or services. Today people use coins, banknotes, bills, checks, credit cards, and debit cards. The cards used at automatic teller machines, or ATMs, to pay for things. Before money was invented, you could only get something from another person by bartering or trading something else for it. It was hard to make even trades and the deal had to be made on the spot. The introduction of money offered people greater flexibility when trying to get goods or services. It made it possible to put standard values on things, and money could be saved and used for future purchases. A great variety of objects have served as money for different people around the world. Anything considered valuable by a group and important to its way of life can be used as money. Shells and feathers, furs and cloth, salt and cattle have all been used at one time or another as money, setting the standard by which the value of all other things were measured. From earliest times, precious metals like gold and silver were used as money because they were durable. Materials that could be easily handled and divided, and they were considered valuable by many groups of people. Carefully weighed amounts of these metals were used as money. A practice that led to the invention of coins in the 7th century BC in the kingdom of Lydia, what is now Turkey. Early metal coins were stamped with designs that showed their weight and value, similar to the coins we use today. Money bills or banknotes came into use around the 10th century in China. Because Chinese coins were so heavy, people started to leave them with merchants, who gave them written receipts that were sometimes used to buy things. The Chinese government soon took over the job of printing receipts that people could use as money. While they are just pieces of paper and not valuable themselves, banknotes became money because they represented valuable things like gold and silver kept in other places. Coins, too, eventually became symbols of value rather than actually being worth something. The coins that were once made of silver and other precious metals are now made of combinations of inexpensive metals. The bills, checks, and credit cards that we use today are likewise representative money used because of their convenience.
What happens when my hand or foot falls asleep?
when a lot of weight is on your arm or leg for a certain amount of time. It goes numb, along with your hand or foot. Your limb has fallen asleep. Normally, blood flows freely through your arm or leg, bringing it oxygen and nutrients and taking away waste products. The pressure on your limb restricts blood flow. This restriction makes your cells work less efficiently there. Especially your nerve cells, which are connected to the touch sensors in your skin. That's why a sleeping limb feels numb. When the pressure is removed from your arm or leg, full blood flow and function gradually return. That's when you have that funny, prickly feeling called pins and needles. Your nerve cells, irritated by the waste buildup in your body tissues, are finally able to send regular messages to your brain, telling it that something is wrong with your circulation. But by that time your limb is already on its way to working normally again. The annoying prickly feeling soon disappears as full circulation returns and your nerves are no longer alarmed.
How did the planets get their names?
All the planets in our solar system, with the exception of Earth, are named after ancient Greek or Roman gods and goddesses. Gigantic Jupiter, for instance, is named fittingly after the Roman king of the gods. The ancient Greeks and Romans believed that their gods and goddesses lived in the heavens. Astronomers of long ago who thought that Earth was the center of the universe and that the planets and sun orbited around it decided to use the names of these mythical heavenly dwellers when they labeled new planets. Because our planet was not considered a part of the heavens, it was called Earth, which means of the ground.
Why is some hair curly and other hair straight?
Hair grows from tiny holes in the skin called follicles. Follicles can have different shapes and sizes. Hair type is determined by the shape and size of the follicles from which they grow. Large follicles mean you'll have thick hair, while narrow follicles result in fine hair. Straight hair comes from round follicles, wavy hair from those that are oval. And curly hair grows from follicles that look like flattened ovals.
Is there life in outer space?
Despite many reports, over many years, of people seeing alien spacecraft, unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, and of personal encounters with creatures from outer space, there has not yet been any real scientific evidence to indicate that life exists anywhere else in the universe but on planet Earth. The other planets in our solar system cannot support life as we know it. They are too hot or too cold, and they have no water sources. Still, because the universe is so unimaginably vast, the possibility of life existing on a planet elsewhere in the Milky Way or in another galaxy cannot be ruled out for certain. Since 1960, scientists have been involved in a program called SETI. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The scientists who take part in this program look for radio signals emitted in outer space that could indicate the existence of some form of life. Assuming these other life forms would have developed radio technology. Radio waves can travel farther than visible light. So such signals could come from places in the universe too far away to be seen with ordinary telescopes. Radio waves are also not blocked or distorted by our atmosphere. In recent years, scientists have begun looking for pulses of laser light in addition to radio waves.
How many muscles do I have?
Scientists can't agree about how many muscles the human body has. Depending on whether certain muscles are counted separately or considered part of a larger muscle. The numbers range from 656 to 850. Muscles make up almost half of a person's body weight. Every movement your body makes depends on muscles. Voluntary muscles, which you control with conscious thought. Move the skeletal muscles on the outside of your body. When you raise your hand or chew your food, for example, you are using skeletal muscles. Involuntary muscles, on the other hand, move things inside your body. Usually without you thinking about them at all. Your heart pumps blood and your stomach and intestines move food through your digestive system. For instance, without your conscious thought.
Why don't spiders get stuck in their own webs?
Some of the strands of a web are made of a different kind of silk that is not sticky. And spiders walk across these. But if a spider should happen to fall into the sticky strands, an oily covering on its body keeps it from getting caught.
Why do mosquito bites itch?
With her long, slender mouth parts, a female mosquito pierces the skin of her victim in order to suck its blood. She injects a substance that keeps the blood from clotting, an anticoagulant, before she drinks her fill. This foreign substance in the blood activates the victim's immune system, causing an allergic reaction around the bite. This reaction causes the swelling and itching that drive us crazy.
How is a porpoise different from a dolphin?
Both porpoises and dolphins are types of whales, they are closely related to one another. Porpoises are usually smaller, 4 to 6 feet, about 1 to 2 meters long, while dolphins average about 8 feet, 2.4 meters, in length. The snout of a porpoise is more rounded, and its teeth are flatter. A dolphin has a long snout and cone-shaped teeth. Dolphins have long been studied for their intelligence, they are very fast learners. For the enormous variety of sounds that they make to communicate, whistles, clicks, and squeaks, and for the tender way that they care for one another and sometimes for human beings. There have been many reports of dolphins saving the lives of people who were drowning or divers who were lost. The most familiar dolphin species is the bottlenose dolphin. Most dolphins in aquariums are this type. Like many dolphins, this animal is graceful and very playful. Its snout gives the impression that the dolphin is smiling when its mouth is open. They can often be spotted on the open sea, following ships and playfully leaping out of the water.
How are clothes made from a sheep's coat?
Wild sheep were tamed or domesticated about 7,000 years ago. But for a long time they were raised mostly for the milk that the females, called ewes, produced, for their meat, and for their skins. It was not until much later that people figured out how to use the long, curly hair, or fleece, of some sheep to make thread and weave it into cloth. Early on, men and women learned that they did not need to kill sheep to use their woolly coats. If they sheared, or removed, the fleece once a year, it would grow back time and again. Today, some breeds of sheep are raised for their meat, while others with long, soft hair are raised for their fleece. In about a minute, a shearer can remove the entire coat of a sheep with electric clippers. The fleece from a single sheep can weigh up to 20 pounds, or about 9 kilograms. After the fleece is removed, it is cleaned and combed so that all of its fibers are arranged in the same direction. Next, the fibers are overlapped and twisted together into long threads that can be woven in a crisscross pattern on a loom to make fabric. The woolen cloth is then cut into pieces and sewn together to make clothes.
What is a test tube baby?
Sometimes, a man and a woman who want to have a baby have trouble conceiving. Many factors can contribute to a fertility problem, and sometimes medical science can help fix it. One solution to infertility is something called in vitro fertilization. With this method, a woman's eggs are fertilized with a man's sperm outside the woman's body. Fertilization takes place in a laboratory, in a glass dish, not really in a test tube. Once fertilization occurs there and the fertilized eggs begin to grow, they are placed inside the woman's uterus to develop further. Eventually a baby is born, sometimes multiple babies are born if more Then one of the fertilized eggs attaches to the uterus and develops fully. Kids who originate from this method of fertilization are no different from other kids. They are simply children who began their lives outside their mother's bodies.
Why is genital hair curly even on people who have straight hair on their heads?
As with the hair on our heads, genital, or pubic, hair is curly and kinky because of the shape of the follicles. And that hair is thick and coarse because of the larger size of the follicles. When we go through puberty, many of the changes in our bodies result from the presence of certain hormones, which are chemicals that control body processes. We have hair follicles all over our bodies. And the hormone androgen affects follicles in several places: the genital area, underarms, and facial hair, changing those follicles during puberty to produce a thick, curly kind of hair. Men have much more androgen than women, which explains why women don't usually have coarse facial hair like men do.
What are learning disabilities?
Learning disabilities are disorders that keep people from understanding or using spoken or written language in typical ways. Learning disabilities are not due to physical handicaps like blindness or deafness. Rather, the disorders have to do with problems in the brain and the way it perceives things. About 6% of all children in the United States have some sort of learning disability. The most common of these are dyslexia, where the brain has trouble understanding words, sometimes reversing the order of letters and words, and attention deficit disorder, AD, which is marked by an inability to concentrate. Special teaching methods have been developed that help such children learn successfully despite their disorders. This teaching is done either in the regular classroom, in special classes, or at a specialized school, depending on the severity of the disorder. It is important to identify learning disabilities early, before affected children express their frustration in bad behavior or start thinking of themselves as stupid. Most people with learning disabilities simply need help learning things in different ways, or at a different pace, from other kids. A great number of people with learning disabilities have above average intelligence. Many go on to lead very successful lives. It is believed that inventor Thomas Edison, political leader Winston Churchill, and scientist Albert Einstein all had learning disabilities. What is meant by IQ?
Why do people have to grow old?
Growing old is part of being a living thing. Every plant and animal must go through a cycle of life that involves a beginning, a middle, and an end. Actually, as soon as we are born we begin aging or growing older. But when we talk of growing old we think of the physical changes that occur when bodies cannot grow and repair themselves as they once did. At about age 30 the signs of aging start to appear. Though for most people the physical changes aren't really obvious until many years later. As people age, skin may begin to sag and wrinkle, and hair may turn thin or gray. Over time muscles become less strong and flexible, and bones may become more brittle and breakable. Blood may not flow through the body as well as it once did, which slows the activity of the brain and the senses. The immune system becomes weaker and does not fight off sickness as well as before. People experience these changes at different ages. But all will grow old as they near the end of their life cycle. It may seem sad that a person has grown old and cannot do all the things they once did. But try to look at it this way: when people grow old, that means they have been lucky enough to avoid things like accidents and diseases that could have cut their lives short. And better yet, regardless of the physical changes of old age, many people remain healthy and lead full and happy lives.
What is the lowest place on Earth?
The lowest place on the surface of Earth is believed to be in the Mariana Trench. Located deep in the western Pacific Ocean, extending southeast of the island of Guam to northwest of the Mariana Islands. It reaches down 36,198 feet, 11,034 meters, below sea level.
Why does my stomach growl when I'm hungry?
Your body changes food into substances it can use for energy. When your body is low on food, it cannot make the energy it needs. Your brain and nervous system go into action then, making the muscles of your stomach walls squeeze together in order to digest food that isn't there. The actions of your stomach make you feel hungry, ensuring that you will seek out some food to eat that will soon be on its way to your stomach. In the meantime, though, gases and digestive juices in your empty stomach churn around, and you may hear growls. Scientists have a name for the rumblings in the digestive system that are caused by moving gas. Borborygmi, pronounced borborygmi, a word that sounds a lot like the noises your stomach makes when it's empty.
What is the strongest muscle in my body?
The strongest muscles in the human body are the jaw muscles. Working together, they can close your back teeth, molars. With a force of 200 pounds, 90.7 kilograms, or more. Muscles become stronger the more they are used. And jaw muscles get a lot of exercise when you talk and eat. The body's most active muscles, however, are those that move the eyes.
Why do some kids occasionally wet the bed in their sleep?
Usually, when you are asleep and your full bladder sends a message to your brain that it needs to be emptied. Your brain wakes you up so that you can go to the bathroom. But once in a while you sleep through the message and wet the bed. Bedwetting is a common occurrence in children up to about 5 years of age. Because muscle control and nervous systems are still immature then. But older children can have the condition, too, called enuresis, and doctors really don't know why. A lot more boys than girls experience bedwetting when they are older, and it seems to run in families. While challenging to deal with, the condition nearly always goes away by itself before adolescence. If a thorough check by a doctor reveals that no physical abnormality is the cause, a child can do a couple of things to limit bedwetting: drink only small amounts of liquids in the evening, and set an alarm clock to wake up during the night and empty the bladder so that an accident will not occur.
Which dinosaurs were the smallest?
When most people think of dinosaurs, they picture the huge ones, like the giant plant-eating sauropods or the large carnivores, meat-eaters, like Tyrannosaurus rex. But some dinosaurs were actually very small. The smallest of them may have been the Compsognathus, pronounced Compsahgnathus, which was only about as big as a chicken.
What are the cloudy streaks that airplanes sometimes make in the sky?
When an aircraft flies very high in the sky where the air is cold, the water vapor from the hot exhaust of its engines condenses, leaving a trail of clouds behind, called contrails. These streaks are not the same as skywriting, when pilots use airplanes to write messages in the air. For skywriting, a special machine on a plane creates and blows out white smoke to form letters. A pilot can only skywrite on clear, non-windy days.
Why do some animals carry their young around in pouches?
Some mammals, like kangaroos, koalas, and possums, are called marsupials. When marsupial babies are born, they are incompletely developed. They continue developing outside the womb, in many cases living for a time in a pouch. A large fold of skin called a marsupium, on the mother's body. The marsupium keeps the developing baby warm and close to the mother's nipples, where it can feed around the clock on the milk the mother produces. Most marsupial species are found in and around Australia, but several species, including the opossum, can be found in North and South America.
Why should I wash my hands after I go to the bathroom?
Feces contain a lot of bacteria. Once solid waste exits the body, it attracts more bacteria, which use it as nourishment to grow and multiply. While some types of bacteria are harmless, other kinds can cause infections and other problems. When you wipe yourself after going to the bathroom, you may get invisible traces of waste on your hands and transfer the bacteria in it to other parts of your body or to objects that others may touch. But this problem can be eliminated by a good hand washing with warm water and soap, for about 2 minutes. Because we live closely with one another, it is important to follow rules of cleanliness or hygiene, to protect our own health and the health of others.
How do mountains and valleys form?
A mountain is an area of high ground that rises 1,000 feet, 305 meters, or more above its surroundings. A group of mountains is called a mountain range. Almost all mountains and valleys, the depressions between separate mountains or mountain peaks, are formed when the huge moving plates of rock that make up Earth's crust collide with one another, which forces their edges to break and rise and fold, eventually creating a rising land mass. The process is a slow one, though, taking place over millions of years. It is also continuous, with new mountains being formed all the time. The age of a mountain can often be determined by its size and shape. Newer mountains are high and jagged, while older ones which have been eroded or worn down by wind and weather over millions of years are smoother and lower. The movement of rivers or glaciers, large masses of ice on land through mountains, can also create valleys by slowly wearing rock away.
What is a city?
A city is a town that has grown very large. In a city, a lot of people live and work in a very small area. Cities are usually centers of manufacturing, business, government, and culture. They offer a variety of jobs and activities that attract people from farms and small villages and towns, as well as from many different places around the world. Before the Industrial Revolution, beginning in the 1800s in the United States, most people lived and worked on farms. Now, with modern methods of agriculture that include complex machinery, scientific breeding, and chemical pesticides, farms require far fewer workers. On the other hand, the need for city workers has grown. In the past 40 years, the number of people in the world who live in cities has doubled to nearly 2/3 of Earth's population. In Africa, Asia, and Latin America, most people are still farmers. But as the countries located there develop more modern industries, their cities will grow and fewer people will live off the land.
What causes a bloody nose?
The mucous membrane that lines your nose has many tiny blood vessels located close to the surface. It is easy to damage one or more of these vessels, resulting in some bleeding from your nose. Sometimes a hard bump on the nose will cause a nosebleed. A cold or infection which can cause crusting that damages the nose lining is another frequent cause. Sometimes the dry air produced by furnaces during winter can dry out the nasal passages and cause a nosebleed. Sometimes the reason for a nosebleed is unknown. Still, while it can be scary and look like a lot of blood is being lost, nosebleeds are generally harmless. The best way to handle a nosebleed is to sit down and lean forward. Leaning back leads to swallowing a lot of blood. Breathe through your mouth and press your thumb on the lower part of your nose on the side that is bleeding. Wait for about 5 minutes, until a blood clot can form on the damaged vessel and stop the nosebleed. An ice pack placed on the bridge of the nose can also help by constricting, or narrowing, blood vessels. Be very careful when handling your nose for about half a day afterward, so that you don't disturb the clot. A nosebleed that doesn't stop after 20 minutes should be treated by a doctor.
How are islands made?
Islands can be created in a couple of ways. Either they are connected, or were once connected, to the continent that they are located near. Or they arise through the ocean floor during volcanic activity or other disturbances in Earth's crust. A continental island as the first kind is called maybe a high part of the continental margin or extension of land that is usually present underwater along a coastline, or may have been separated from its parent continent by a watery passageway carved out by the sea. Great Britain and Japan are examples of continental islands. The islands of Hawaii, on the other hand, are examples of oceanic islands. Because they were formed by volcanic activity on the floor of the Pacific Ocean some 40 million years ago.
What are mosses?
Most of us have seen moss growing in a soft, green carpet at the base of a tree in the woods. Like ferns, mosses can grow all over the world, but they thrive in damp, shady areas. Both plants require moisture to reproduce during the reproductive stage. The male sex cells need water to swim to the female sex cells so they can fuse and create new plants. Most mosses are small, but one tropical species can grow to heights of 27 inches, 69 centimeters. Lacking true roots, mosses connect to the ground or trees with tiny, root-like structures called rhizoids. Mosses can hold tremendous amounts of water, which has made certain varieties very useful to the environment. And some Native American Indians took advantage of moss's absorbency by using it for diapers. Mosses help prevent flooding. And gardeners use a type called peat moss to keep soil moist and rich with nutrients.
Why do I have to do household chores?
Running a household is a lot of work. Your parents do most of the chores required to take care of your family's food, clothing, house, and yard, especially when you are young. But as you become older, your strength and skills increase, and you can help out. Household tasks are called chores because they usually aren't fun to do. You can probably think of plenty of activities that would be more entertaining than cleaning your room or mowing the lawn. But these things have to be done by somebody. And it is only fair that everybody in a family does his or her part. And when all family members pitch in, household chores get done more quickly. And everyone has more time to do the things that they like. So when you do household chores, you are really showing that you care about your family. Also, taking on such additional responsibilities is a part of growing up, preparing you for the time when you will have to do those jobs by yourself.
Why am I punished when I've done something wrong?
Try to remember that when you are punished, it is not because you are bad. You are being punished because you need to learn that there are better ways to handle your feelings and control your actions when upsetting situations occur. When you are young, it is hard to do this. To help keep you from hurting yourself or others, grown-ups make rules for you to follow. Some rules, like those about sharing and taking turns, for instance, are meant to help everyone get along and treat each other with thoughtfulness and respect. Other rules, like those about wearing a helmet while riding a bike, let's say, are meant to keep everyone safe. So rules exist for good reasons, and it is wise to follow them. Punishments which are unpleasant are meant to remind you that breaking rules results in negative consequences. And maybe next time you will think harder when tempted to do something you're not supposed to do.
How large is the world's biggest spider?
The largest known spiders in the world are the Goliath bird-eating spiders, which live in the coastal rainforests of northeastern South America. They can become as big as dinner plates. The largest recorded specimen had a leg span of 11 inches, 28 centimeters. This spider, a type of tarantula, has a somewhat misleading name. So-called bird-eating spiders don't usually eat birds but instead dine on snakes, frogs, and insects.
Why do metal things feel cold?
When heat is transferred from one material to another, it is called conduction. Metal is a good conductor of heat, while nonmetals like wood and plastic are poor conductors. The temperature of any metal object in a room is about the same as the air that surrounds it. Your body, on the other hand, has its own internal furnace, which keeps it running at a temperature of about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius. When you touch a metal object that's surrounded by air cooler than your body, the object quickly conducts heat away from your fingertips, which makes them feel cold. The sensation travels to your brain, which perceives that the metal object is cold. If you hold a small metal object, like a penny, in your hand for a long time, it will absorb enough of your body heat to feel as warm as you are. The opposite is also true. If you touch the hood of a car that's been sitting in a sunny driveway on a warm day, the metal will conduct heat to your fingertips, and the hood will feel hot to you.
Why do plants sometimes wilt in the sun?
In order to take in and get rid of the gases carbon dioxide and oxygen involved in food production, plants have thousands of microscopic openings called stomata on their leaves and stems. Most of the stomata are located on the underside of leaves. A leaf on a cucumber plant has 60,000 stomata in just over 1/10 of a square inch. 1 square centimeter. Water that circulates throughout a plant escapes through these many openings in a process called transpiration. Usually a plant takes up more water through its roots than it loses through its leaves, and it is able to keep its firm shape. But on a hot, dry, or windy day, a plant can lose a lot of water through its leaves at a much faster rate than it can take it in. On such days, wilting can occur. Water pressure in plant cells helps give plants their form. Without that pressure, the cells shrink, causing a plant to wilt. At night, when there is no sunlight for photosynthesis, the stomata on plants are closed by special guard cells that surround their openings. Little transpiration occurs then, and a plant can refill its supply of water through its roots. Water pressure will return to normal in plant cells, then, along with the normal shape and appearance of the plant.
What is a tidal wave?
Tidal waves are giant waves that hit the shore and cause coastal flooding and great damage. The name is inaccurate, however, because these waves have nothing to do with tides. The daily rise and fall of water levels of the world's great bodies of water. The cause of almost all tidal waves are earthquakes that occur beneath the ocean floor. The quake causes a deep, long wave that moves very quickly up to 500 miles, 805 kilometers, an hour. When it approaches shallow water and a coastline, The water builds up into an enormous wave that can reach up to 100 feet, 30.5 meters, in height. When it crashes ashore, it destroys everything in its path. A tidal wave is also known as a tsunami, which is a Japanese word meaning giant wave.
Are worms insects?
While some insects are worm-like in their immature, or larval, stage. The invertebrate creatures classified as worms are not insects. There are many different types of worms. In the earthworm category alone, there are thousands of species. Earthworms are very beneficial little animals. They are part of the diets of a huge variety of birds and other animals. And they also help keep the soil they live in healthy and nutritious for plants. The tiny tunnels created when worms burrow into dirt, they're actually eating the dirt as they go. Help the roots of plants get more nutrients, air, and water. Even the worm's manure, called worm castings, is beneficial. It's a great fertilizer. Earthworms are hermaphroditic, meaning that each worm has both male and female sex organs. A single worm is not capable of reproduction. However, each worm still needs a partner in order to get its eggs fertilized. While earthworms cannot actually hear or see, they can pick up vibrations and can sense light. The species of earthworm most common in the United States is rather small. These usually grow to be about 10 inches, 25 centimeters, long. There is a species found in Australia, however, that can be as long as 11 feet, 3.3 meters.
Can spiders fly?
Spiders do not have wings and cannot, technically, fly. Several types of spiders, however, can travel long distances through the air by a process called ballooning. The spiders spin long strands of silk that are caught by the wind, carrying the spiders along the currents. Spiders can travel far by this method, as far as hundreds of miles. And in some cases they can fly as high as 2,600 feet, 800 meters. One spider was even recorded at an altitude of 15,000 feet, 4,572 meters.
Why are elephants hunted for their tusks?
Elephants' tusks, the huge, elongated pair of upper teeth that they use for digging and fighting, are the source of ivory, a hard, creamy white material that has long been carved and polished to create beautiful objects. There are two types of ivory: live ivory, which is taken from a recently killed animal, and dead ivory, from an animal long dead, which is usually found on or buried in the ground. Dead ivory is harder and more brittle, cracking easily. Live ivory is more moist and easier to work with. The quest for live ivory has led to hundreds of thousands of elephants being killed for their tusks. Once very widespread, the world's elephant population has dwindled alarmingly because of this slaughter. But these great animals are now protected in many areas by strict laws that punish elephant hunters. Unfortunately, even the threat of punishment is not enough to stop some poachers or hunters who illegally kill protected animals. In spite of an international ban on the sale of elephant ivory, hundreds of elephants are killed each year by people wanting to sell the ivory.
Why are animals sometimes kept in cages at zoos?
For many decades, most zoo animals were exhibited in cages with bars. It was a way to allow zoo visitors a good view of the animals while keeping people safe from unexpected attacks. Cages also kept animals in small areas, which was economical, saving the zoo money, and they were made of hard materials that could be hosed down, making them easy to keep clean. While cages are still used at zoos today, it is not often that an animal is kept in one all the time. Zoologists now realize that it is unhealthy and even cruel for an animal to always be confined to a cage where it cannot get the exercise it would ordinarily get in the wild. In recent years, many zoos have built large enclosures for zoo animals that resemble the creature's own natural habitats. While zoo visitors may not be able to look as closely at an animal in such enclosures where a creature can hide in caves or trees, the accommodations are much better for the animal, which can now exhibit more natural behavior.
Can a wish made on a shooting star come true?
Except for people who watch the skies a lot, like weather specialists or astronomers, it is rare to spot a shooting star. The period of time that meteors are incandescent, heated by friction with Earth's atmosphere and made to glow, usually lasts only a second or two before they burn up. For hundreds of years, when people saw things in the sky that were rare or unusual, like shooting stars or comets, they thought that they were signs from their god or gods predicting events, both good and bad, that would soon occur in their lives. Even though modern science has now provided us with practical explanations about what occurs in the sky, it can still be fun to believe once in a while that our lives are connected with what goes on up there. It doesn't hurt to make a wish sometimes. Wishing for something helps us come up with ways to turn a wish into a reality. But shooting stars have no special powers that help wishes come true.
What is a bruise?
When a bump or fall breaks blood vessels under your skin's surface, a bruise might appear. The blood that seeps out of the vessels and into your tissues changes color over several days, usually from red to purple and blue, to brown and yellow before it fades away. Bruises are not harmful unless they are very severe. Bruises on your shin and head, where bones are located just beneath the skin, can swell a lot, like with a black eye. A cold, wet cloth or ice can reduce the swelling.
Why don't dogs get hoarse when they bark a lot?
It seems like some dogs can bark and bark for hours. Yet they never seem to get hoarse or lose their voice. Bark, like people do when they talk, yell, or sing too much. Veterinarians, animal doctors, think that is because a dog's voice box, or larynx, is not as complicated as the larynx of a human, who needs to make a wide range of different sounds to speak. So the stress that results from excessive barking doesn't do nearly as much damage as overusing a human voice does.
Why do people smoke cigarettes?
People smoke cigarettes for the same reasons they do any kind of drug. They like the way it makes them feel. Cigarette tobacco contains nicotine, which is a stimulant that produces an energetic, happy feeling in some people. It can also make people feel relaxed, and for some it decreases appetite. Lots of people start smoking because they want to fit in with a certain group of friends, or because they like the image they present when they light up a cigarette. But while smoking is legal, for those over the age of 18, it has been repeatedly proven to be highly addictive and extremely harmful. In addition to nicotine, cigarettes contain numerous harmful chemicals, like tar and the poisonous gas carbon monoxide. Some minor, but highly unattractive side effects of smoking include bad breath and permanently discolored teeth and fingers. But these problems pale in comparison to the major health risks of smoking. Cigarette smoking is believed to be the cause of 90% of all cases of lung cancer. And lung cancer causes more deaths each year than any other kind of cancer. Smoking causes many other kinds of cancers too, as well as heart disease and numerous other ailments. If women smoke while pregnant, it can cause problems for the health of the fetus. And babies who live in households where people smoke are at an increased risk of dying from sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. Hundreds of thousands of people die each year in the United States from smoking-related illnesses, and if those people had never picked up a cigarette in the first place, those illnesses could have been prevented.
Will wild birds reject their babies if people touch them?
Many people believe that if a person touches a wild baby bird to put it back in the nest, the bird's parents will be able to detect the human scent and will then reject the baby. pushing it right back out of the nest. This widely held belief is simply not true. If a baby bird is found on the ground and appears to be able to fly, leave it alone and trust that it will find its way back to the family nest. If it clearly cannot fly, and you know where its nest is, pick it up gently and place it back in the nest. If the nest can't be found, some experts suggest putting the baby bird in a small basket and hanging it on a nearby bush or tree. The bird's parents will care for it in the basket until it is able to fly.
Did you know that early bicycles had pedals attached to their front wheels, just like tricycles?
To give them greater speed, bike designers kept enlarging the front wheels, some of which measured up to 64 inches, 163 centimeters, across. Known as high wheelers, they were quite dangerous to ride. Bicyclists couldn't touch the ground with their feet when they stopped, and they often fell forward over their handlebars when they hit bumps. A high wheeler was also hard to balance because it had only one rear wheel, not two.
Why are some people blind?
Blindness is complete loss of sight. It can happen when certain parts of the eyeballs, the optic nerves, which carry visual signals from the eyes to the brain, or the sight centers of the brain are damaged. Such damage can occur as a result of injuries or diseases. A person can also be born with eye or brain abnormalities that cause blindness. In many cases, particularly in very poor countries, infectious diseases and poor diets can also cause blindness. A lack of vitamin A, in fact, is the leading cause of blindness worldwide. With basic medicines and proper nutrition, such cases could be prevented. For every one person in the United States who is totally blind, there are 4 others who are visually impaired or legally blind. These people have some ability to see, but they see so poorly even with eyeglasses that they cannot do things that require good vision, like driving a car.
How many teeth do I have?
You have 2 sets of teeth. The first set, your baby teeth, consists of 20 teeth. These teeth are small so they can fit in the small jaws of a young child. They usually break through singly or in pairs between the ages of 6 months and 30 months. At 6 years of age, a larger set of teeth begin to surface, slowly replacing your baby teeth. 32 new teeth will eventually line your growing jaws, the last coming in around the age of 18. These permanent teeth will perform all your eating tasks for the rest of your life. Your 4 front teeth, top and bottom, sharp incisors cut and tear off food when you bite, along with your 4 pointed canine teeth. The flat-topped bicuspids, premolars, and molars near the back of your mouth crush and chew your food.
What is the highest place on Earth?
The highest place on the surface of Earth is the top of Mt. Everest, in the central Himalayas. A mountain system located on the border between Nepal and Tibet in southern Asia. Everest rises to 29,028 feet, 8,848 meters, above sea level. On May 28, 1953, New Zealander Sir Edmund Hillary and Nepal native Tenzing Norgay were the first people to successfully make the trip to the top of Everest. Since then many mountain climbers have tried to reach the peak, few have succeeded.
What happens to our garbage after it's collected?
A garbage truck probably comes to your neighborhood once a week to pick up your family's trash. On other days garbage trucks are at work in other parts of your city. Sometimes trash that can't be reused or recycled is taken away to an incinerator plant, where it is burned into ash. Most often garbage is taken to a landfill, a huge hole in the ground commonly known as a garbage dump. Both methods of disposal cause problems. Burning garbage creates waste products that enter the air, causing pollution. Landfills use up precious space, there are more than 9,000 in the United States. And are so ugly and smelly that few communities want one located near them. Transporting trash to distant landfills is troublesome and expensive. The best way to handle garbage is to make less of it, developing habits that are not wasteful and to reuse and recycle the trash that we can't avoid making. Americans produce about 230 million tons of garbage each year. In order to get as much garbage as possible into a landfill, it is crushed and tightly packed into its space. At the end of each day, new trash is covered with a layer of dirt to keep germs from spreading and to keep creatures like rats and flies away. Pipes have to be inserted into landfill sites to allow the escape of gases that are produced when garbage decomposes. If this wasn't done, the gases could explode. Once garbage nears the top of a landfill, the hole is sealed off and covered with tons of dirt. Over time, when decomposition has stopped and all dangerous gases have escaped, the spot can be used for other things. One northern community, for example, built a great sledding hill on top of its landfill.
Should I pop a blister?
Just like scabs, blisters appear for good reasons. When skin is injured by burns or irritating chemicals, like poison ivy, or friction. From the repeated rubbing of stiff new shoes on your feet, for instance, your body produces a cushion of fluid under the damaged area to protect the new skin cells that are growing below to repair the spot. So popping or removing a blister takes this protective covering away. It is better to leave a blister alone and keep the damaged skin clean. A band-aid can be used to cushion the spot. A blister may break on its own. If not, the fluid will be absorbed back into the body once it's no longer needed.
What is air?
Air is a mixture of gases that circle Earth, kept in place by gravity. Air makes up Earth's atmosphere. The air we breathe is 78% nitrogen gas, 21% oxygen, 0.9% argon, and 0.03% carbon dioxide, along with water vapor floating molecules of water. Also present are traces of other gases and tiny bits of dust, pollen grains from plants, and other solid particles. As our atmosphere extends higher and higher above Earth, toward outer space, air becomes thinner and the combination of gases in the air changes.
Did you know that a few centuries ago people were so convinced about the health benefits of sneezing that they inhaled something called snuff into their nostrils to make themselves sneeze on purpose?
Snuff, which is flavored and scented ground tobacco, was carried around in fancy little boxes and used throughout the day to cause sneezing. Sniffing snuff reached its greatest popularity during the 18th century. Among wealthy men and women in Europe,